Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining us for our November meeting. I'm going to call the meeting into order. The first line of on our agenda is recognition. Dr. Clendenning.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out on this lovely snowy evening. We're going to start with individual student growth, one of our guiding principles this evening. So if Olivia Paramore could please come forward. Olivia earned an individual spot in the IHSAA Girls State Golf Championship. She tied for 42nd place. See Dr. Clendenning. Congratulations.
Oh, yeah. Congrats. Yeah.
Okay. This is my dad. My mom, I don't know where she is, but the state tournament was really fun, and I'm glad I got to go to it. I wish I would have done better, but I think next year the whole team could go. So
You had a good couple days. You battled back through a couple tough holes, but overall you ended up well. What place did you finish?
42nd.
42nd. That was great. So congratulations. We're proud of you. We're going to have you stand right here between Mr. Works and I, and we're going to take a picture here. Congrats.
Thank you.
IHSAA Track and Field State Tournament. Lily Lacey, Wyatt McCullough, Drew Hargis, and Ethan Pfeiffer would come forward. Lily Lacey placed 19th in the girls' 3,200 meter run. Matt Frazier, who graduated last year, placed 15th in the boys' pole vault. Our 4x800 meter relay placed 10th. The members were Wyatt McCullough, Drew Hargis, and Ethan Pfeiffer. Andrew Bixler graduated last year. He was also part of this team. Please join me in congratulating our student track and field athletes.
That'd be great.
So back there is my mom and dad, and that's my sister.
I'm here with my mom, Emily McCullough, and that's all.
I'm here with my parents, Debbie and Carrie Hargis, sitting right there.
All right. And these three also finished up a very strong cross-country season. The last meet was a little wet, so kind of like tonight, it was snowing. They had a torrential downpour when they ran over at Shelbyville. So congratulations. We'll look forward to seeing you in track coming up. And for Lily, swimming, you want to weigh in on tomorrow's practice? You want me? Yeah. So Zach did text me already and say if I delay to let him know. So any comments you want to?
Yeah, if we have to delay, we're still practicing.
It's good. That's sweet. Oh, yeah, keep going that way. All right. All right. Congratulations.
Now moving on to our guiding principle of collaboration. If Cheryl Moran and Spencer Hessman, if Spencer is here. Yes, he's still on. We would like to welcome Cheryl. We're very proud to announce that Cheryl Moran, our principal at CBIS, was recognized as a patriotic employer by the Office of the Secretary of Defense Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve. She was nominated by Webb Elementary behavior interventionist Spencer Hessman. Hessman is currently on military leave and nominated Mrs. Moran to recognize her efforts to support him while he was away on active duty. Mrs. Moran encouraged students and teachers to take turns sending Hessman letters, pictures, Valentines, and anything else to remind him of home and that he was not forgotten. Congratulations, Principal Moran.
In addition, Webb this semester sent Christmas cards to active duty military, and they just got those in the mail recently. So your legacy back at Webb still continues. And then she was highlighted in a national magazine called District Administration. So well done.
Thank you.
Here, we get a picture. All right. Mr. Wertz, that will conclude all of the recognitions for tonight.
All right, this would be a great time to exit if you wish. Or you can stick around.
You're more than welcome to stay. Hey, Steve. This is Ethan's. Like,
Is Spencer here or is he still? Is he still abroad? Yeah.
At this time, I'll, if there are any public comments in respect to any agenda items, please step forward and keep your comments to 2 minutes. All right, seeing no public
Do you have a
comments, we'll move up to.
yeah, welcome.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I didn't know, well, I didn't know if it was.
No, no,
Avery.
so sorry. Go ahead, yeah, come on up. Just state your name and,
I have to come up.
yes.
Can I just stand here?
Well, it needs to be on the
Signal
mic.
on the
Yeah.
camera.
Yeah.
My name is Laura Alexander. I have 3 kids in the school corporation.
Oh, do I really? Can I just?
It's for the
It's
TV.
for the video. It's okay. I hate public speaking.
Yeah.
My name's Laura Alexander. I'm a parent of children in the corporation, and I also coach for the corporation. I'm coming on behalf of administrative salaries. Sorry, guys. I was curious as to where this money is coming from. I did vote for the referendum. I supported it under the pretense that our corporation was in financial straits, that we desperately needed this money. And I think a raise for administration is not how I wanted my money spent. I expect more teachers hired on. I expected more help in the classrooms. Clearly, we have an issue with some of our current students. And my taxes are going to go up $1,000 next year because of the referendum. And again, I pushed for that under the belief that financially we were struggling. And I realized that these raises may be not coming from the referendum, but again, if you're asking the public for tax dollars, for more money, then everyone should be buckling down. If I'm having to give up $1,000 a year, I expect some sacrifices from other people. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm supporting teachers, and they deserve the best from us. And I think they've been neglected for a while in our corporation, and I think it's time that we start supporting them. So
Appreciate you coming out. Your comments. Are there any other public comments? All right. Moving on to board and administrative comments, collective bargaining.
No update tonight.
All right. Well, communication committee, I know. You have any update by chance, David?
We do not.
Okay.
Robin, do you have anything?
Yes, the communications committee met and went over the survey results that were provided by the community. Great results overall. Definitely let us know that we were headed in the right direction. We did make note of a few things that the committee will be working on. One thing off the top of my head is a unified calendar.
Okay.
So we will provide updates.
No update.
No update. Any music council, I don't believe met. RDC, we do not have an update for this evening. Superintendent strategic plant projects.
Employer of choice continues to be on the forefront as we continued our listening tours. And Mrs. Gross will be bringing that to us. And then on the task force, we have had 2 meetings as we continue to move forward with writing the strategic plan through 2030. We have a meeting coming up on the 20th of this month. Last meeting, we looked at graduation pathways. And Mr. Ahaus gave us an overview, and we're also involved in a thought exchange opportunity with that one right now about what do people really want to see in that graduation pathways journey. And we'll continue to talk about that. We still are going to be discussing redistricting coming up, as well as grades 5, 6, 7, and 8. in that journey for our school district. So we'll look forward to all those conversations.
All right. One that's not on there is Athletic Council.
Yes, thank you. So we saw that we had the students here from the track and the girls golf, but to note for conference champions this year, we've had the volleyball team, the boys track and field, and then the girls golf. Also to note is that we've got 3 Coach of the Year for Mid-State Conference. So Coach Cole from football. Really interesting there is that the conference champ didn't get the nomination on that. So Coach Cole has done a great job on the football to turn that program around and has had an outstanding year. We've also got Coach Schwartz from the cross country, and then Coach Champion from volleyball is the conference of the Coach of the Year. Mr. Doty wanted me to call out and thank you to the pep band. So Tim Koch, Jason Hammond-Wood, and Jacob Bullock for their support at the games. That's really meaning a lot to the kids, especially for our teams that are there. And so just their efforts of having the pep band show up, participating in the games and that. So thank you to those guys for organizing those efforts and getting the kids there to support.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Can we drill down on the first one?
Sure.
And maybe David, can you talk about a summary of where that money comes from and
Sure.
how it compares to teachers and stuff?
Yeah, thank you. So the admin salaries are coming from just the state distribution of dollars that we receive in a normal year. It's the new money, actually, that the teachers would have received in the past. And just in any budget, we do budget for admin salaries. This year, we did advance some things inside of the referendum. We did hire classroom teachers to reduce class size. We did hire assistants to help bring some of that down across the board. We also have brought on a new director of mental health to help support that. So we're definitely seeing some of those. And then inside the teacher salaries this year, they are receiving $2,500, as we talked about inside the referendum, for those people. Support staff is coming on. You're going to hear a little bit more about that this evening, but no referendum dollars are going towards admin salaries.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Ryan, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think to Laura's point, has there been times where someone could point to and say there are years we have not done admin salaries, or we always do it every year because it's how you keep and retain administration?
Yeah, we've matched what happens with the teachers, and if we have not had a raise or whatever, or it would be commensurate with the teachers in the past. We've always budgeted admin salaries, and one of the things that the board has commissioned and required of me all along over the last 11 years is to look at the principals and central office team and say, okay, inside that bucket of money, how are we going to distribute it? That's how I came up with the indexes. But when there were years when we had, smaller amounts of raises or whatever the new money would be, that would be commensurate with that. Now, obviously, if we look at percentages of salaries, because the principals and central office team would make, their salaries a little bigger, so 1% of that is definitely more than the beginning teacher salary. So that's what we would have. But we have not had a time where the teachers didn't get a raise and the admin got a raise. Does that help answer that? I mean, I think, as I repeated throughout the presentations to the community, the dollars were going to go to teachers, support staff, and mental health. And that's my commitment. You're going to continue to see the transparency on that. We want smaller class sizes. We want to help provide opportunities to educate the student the best possible. I also want to keep an administrative team that's outstanding. And when we look at their peer group and those different things, that will play in there. But we will not be utilizing one penny of referendum dollars for that. Admin team will receive raises recommendations of raises, depending on what the board wants to do, from the money generated from the state legislators. And as we have for teachers, there's a new money calculation that we use, and that's what we budget from.
Does it have to go to that though? Do the monies from the state, are they specific in how you are to spend it? I guess that's what I want to know. Is it, do they say you have to allot it for A, B, and C, and one of those is administrative salaries? That's what I want. I just want to know if we are putting as much money as we can into the buildings. That's what I want to know.
Yep.
I mean, my kindergartner, well, he should have been going to kindergarten. He's on the spectrum, but he is not in kindergarten this year. But if he had been in kindergarten at Creekside this year, I don't know that he would have been able to function. It's not been, it's been a little hectic. And I want to know that we are putting as many aides, assistants, staff in there to help teachers, help the administrators. I'm sure the administrators want that too. Like, as much help as possible. And I guess, and because I don't know the ins and outs of it. I don't know if the state says you have to spend money on this. And if they do, that's fine. But I just want to make sure that we are putting as much of our money towards the buildings, the staff in the buildings at this point. That's what I'm concerned.
We have the same desire to see our teachers and our classrooms impact students. And so to answer your question, does the state declare? No, what the state says is we're going to get so much per kid in addition to some other ways we get revenue. In that budget, then Ms. Gross will then divide the budget up. And we do have inside of that administrative salaries, personnel for teachers, classroom supplies, et cetera. So that's what we look at in terms of dividing the budget up. And so that's how we've done it for all the years. And we've come in and we are trying to get as many dollars to the classroom as possible. That's why the referendum had to come to us. You know, with the circuit breaker and the impacts of that, I agree with you. The entire school communities had to give that 2.8 million and 24 million over the last 10 years. We've given up a lot, but the community said, thank you. And we agree. And I would echo that same thoughts that we have been good stewards. We have drilled down and using our Six Sigma strategies and different things to ensure that we're getting dollars to the classrooms. You know, back to Creekside and those things, you know, Mark did get additional support immediately in the year in looking at how we're going to help kids that in the past, without the referendum dollars, we would not have been able to do that. So we are getting some things, but I understand from the community, like saying, well, how does that work? And, you know, you're seeing, you know, the admin salaries at $2,172.44, thinking, where's that come from? Well, it's coming out of the state distribution of dollars. It's not anything to do with the referendum. We will have the commitment to keep class sizes. The board directed the average class size elementary in the buildings to be 25. That's a board directive that I have to live with it as we plan to move forward. If we can move smaller than that, that's great. We want to make sure that we are providing that. And so we're going out and doing listening tour right now to all the teachers. And we're asking them, how can we help? What's the best thing that we can do to help you? And we're hearing them say, you know what, behaviors are up, right? Just what you just said. And you know, and you know, it's an issue everywhere, and we're hearing that. So it's like, okay, so now the strategy for us would be to come back and say, what's the plan of attack? And that's going to go into our strategic plan to move forward with that. But, you know, I feel like over the last 11 years, we've been good stewards. I do not believe we are, you know, the admin team or anybody's getting paid way out of line compared to everybody else in our group. Yes, the principals make more. Yes, my salary is more. But it also, compared to the other districts, the groups we're with, we're in the same boat that teachers were in. And we want to keep them. We want to recruit and retain great principals, great assistant principals, great central office team. And I would even say superintendent, but that's not You know, I love my job. I love what we do here. And I would be more than happy to sit down and walk through the budget with you and show what it looks like and how we do that. But you have my word. We're doing 100% best to get to the classroom, to make classroom sizes small. The principals, they come to us all the time saying, hey, what can we do? And what can we do to be proactive? And we'll continue to do that. So does that answer the questions?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it doesn't take away the concern.
Absolutely.
There's still a big concern.
Yeah.
I'm not, like I said, I mean, he's not in the building.
Yeah.
And I realize that kids are different these days and they're coming from different homes and that type of thing, and I understand that. It's just, like I said, I want to make sure that this money, that we put as much money towards teachers, assistants, that type of thing, because I want the best in our building. And I
for sure.
feel like we have great teachers, but they need help.
Yep.
They do. They just need help. There's no other way around it.
Well, one of the questions we're actually asking on the listening tour, if I said, if you could have more kids in your class, but an assistant, and this is for the elementaries that we're asking this question as well, and CBIS, or would you have lower class sizes? What would you want? And it's been an interesting mix. Some of the teachers say, I just want another set of hands. Some say, listen, class size matters because I could have 30, and if they're all angelic, it's like awesome.
Right.
And if I have 18, it's a factor of 3. Right. And so we're monitoring that. And that's one of the things, you know, Mr. Lamb walked beside us in developing the budget for the board. He was the board's representative on the referendum as we traveled through. And so when Mr. Mercer was still CFO, and then as Ms. Gross came on to be a part of that, we would meet every week and have conversations about, on Tuesday, it was a Tuesday morning phone call. We would chat about where we are with the budget. What's it look like? So we set those dollars up to do that, to give the teachers the best they can. And we're going to continue to do that. Absolutely 100%. Okay. But I'll reach out to you after tomorrow, and we'll sit down and I'll be glad to walk.
And Tina, can you give her those color-coded charts?
I will.
I don't know the numbers, but the colors are helpful.
Thanks,
Gotcha.
Laura. We appreciate
Laura,
it.
we'll also be reporting on how we spend the referendum dollars. We're required to do that by the state. So probably around this time next year, I'll report to the board on how that money was spent in 2020 and what that looks like going forward. So it'll be a very transparent process.
One other thing I would add is that we don't receive our first dollar until this coming summer of 2020. The board required and asked us to go ahead and move forward with these initiatives on class size, on getting the teachers their $2,500, getting the support staff the average of 10 to 12%. So we're moving forward with that, and that's a substantial amount of money just to show that we want to keep people here. We want people to choose our school because our kids deserve great teachers, and I agree 100% with what you're saying.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Move for approval with highlighting under the personnel report that we have a teacher that's retiring out of Needham with 43 years of service.
Yeah.
So that's pretty impressive, 43 years at the school.
For sure.
So,
All right, it's been moved for approval. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, thank you much. We'll move on to superintendent reports. Dr. Clendenning, 10X presentations.
Thank you. And, part of the recruit and retain and opportunities we've had is to use 10X dollars to support both support staff and teachers. And tonight we get to hear about a food experience for both presenters. So Jill Overton is going to talk about a journey to King Arthur Flour in Boston. Vermont. Oh, it's even better, I guess. Yeah. Vermont. And then Carrie Woodring is going to come up and share her experience as well.
It is even better. I mean, honestly, I can only say it was spectacular. I mean, what could be a better place to be than New England in the fall? I mean, it was just absolutely spectacular. As well as I sort of conquered my poor yeast handling skills. I've always considered myself a fairly decent cook, but yeast doughs were horrible. I mean, I would read books and try recipes, and it would just go whoop. So, being able to go to King Arthur Flour was so cool. Our first stop, though, actually was in Boston. We flew in and out of Boston, so we took the opportunity to stop at the JFK Presidential Library, which I had not been to before. And this quote really struck me because I kind of thought of this as my career. I don't know that I would have accomplished what I wanted to in the first 100 days or the first 1,000 days, or maybe even in my entire career here in Franklin. I consider myself a lifelong learner, and just every opportunity I have to learn something new is exciting for me. The sailboat was actually JFK's 15th birthday present. So that's actually on the site. It was a miserable, cloudy, rainy day, but it was a very fun place to stop. Except once we left Boston, the traffic was crazy. 4 lanes, bumper to bumper, from Boston to New Hampshire. They let you drive on the shoulder. I'm like, why are these people over here driving? That was the 4th lane of traffic. It was like, I thought my husband was going to get out of the car and just walk away and leave it on the highway. But anyway, once we got to King Arthur the next day, you can see a little bit what the classroom looks like, just like any other classroom. We all had our mixers. We all had our recipes. King Arthur Flour has been in operation for 230 years. Didn't start out as actually King Arthur Flour. It was the gentleman's names who actually started the company. But now it is 100% employee owned and operated. So it's really kind of a cool place to be. So the first day we made pretzels. Pretzels was so fun. I mean, in your packets, you have enough yeast and malt powder and the recipe for pretzels to make pretzels with your kids, your grandkids. Seriously, have a ball. It was very fun. I mean, if you like to cook, do it. I think for me too, the interesting thing was there were couples there were siblings there were families there. And yesterday on the it's the Sunday morning show, CBS Sunday Morning. They were talking about the latest revision of the Joy of Cooking cookbook. It dawned on me, it is the joy of cooking. Seriously, it was the best. So you also have a recipe for the pizza dough. As you can see, they have a huge wood-fired pizza oven that's built out of granite. I would assume either New Hampshire or Vermont stone. That pizza is the one that I made. My husband's kind of looked like an amoeba, so I left the picture. Michael would be going, okay, Jill, tell everybody my pizza wasn't round. Mine's not perfectly round, but it was a better shape than his any day of the week. The other thing is they use a lot of whole grain flours. I mean, I think in schools, the edict was in 2012 that we go to 100% whole grain for our grains that we serve to kids. So for me, it was also really interesting to work with those whole grains in different ways. I left for you on your table as well. That is a ginger pear torte, and that is a shortbread kind of a cookie dough, and it is made with whole grain pastry flour. And you can't get any more local than my front yard is where the pears came from. So you're welcome. And that recipe's in there too. It's really fun. So basically there's 2. I'm sorry. Okay. Well, because the other tart that we did here was a rustic apple tart. So it had more of the traditional pastry dough that you're used to cutting in, the shortening and folding and rolling. I think the highlight of that one is it included rum-soaked raisins. So that was pretty cool. So we basically spent 2 days going to class at King Arthur, and it was awesome. The next day we went to Burlington. I don't know if you guys are aware or not, but we are working on a food truck trailer project. So one of my goals was to actually see one of these, get on it, look around. Well, here's the bad news. They already had it in storage. So I guess in Vermont, they're not using it early because the winters come a little earlier than they do here. But I had an opportunity to speak with the individuals who actually ran their food truck, how they got it going. They had a lot of support from the community, businesses and grants to get them going. So at least I got an opportunity to speak with them and get a lot of good information. But here's the really awesome thing we got to do. We took a balloon flight. Oh my goodness. If you have the opportunity to do it, oh, please do it. I mean, I think it's sort of funny. I think Michael and I both kind of had a little, concern about safety. But I don't even think we shared it with each other, because when we came down, he was like, oh my gosh, that was awesome. It was so spectacular. We went out over Lake Champlain and then into the White Mountains. The colors are so vivid. I mean, seriously, the reds seemed to be more red and the oranges and the golds. I mean, it was just so amazing. The balloon itself, I think that the pilot said was 9 stories tall. There were actually 2 that took off together that day. The other one was a smaller one that you can see in this other picture. That one had like a basket they sat in. Their feet dangled out of that one. And there was a time when, because we were kind of staying together, but then not really staying together, they got so close to the water, I swear their feet were touching the lake. But so it doesn't look like it's that much smaller, but that was a significantly smaller balloon. This pilot was amazing. I mean, obviously you can't really steer the balloon. The wind's going to take you there, but he would spin it 365 degrees so that everybody had this spectacular view. It was just absolutely amazing. Around the next corner, my husband's probably thinking, would you just shut up? Because he's driving and I'm like, oh, look over there. Oh, look over there. And he was probably thinking, I'm be glad to get you home. But I just do, again, want to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, providing these grants, for me to travel to New England in October. I came back inspired and mentally stimulated and more creative. I mean, I was just so blessed to have this journey, learn new things, experience the beauty of our country. And I said, and my staff would tell you this, probably drive my staff a little bit nutty because I've got more crazy ideas that I want to share with them. So again, thank you. Hopefully you'll do a little baking on your own. It really is a lot of fun, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. I mean, here's their list of classes. So if you guys want to go, yeah, it's absolutely an amazing place. I asked the teachers, I said, can you guys build one of these in the Midwest somewhere? Say one in Vermont, one in Washington State. So I think really need to find a way to come to the Midwest. But thank you again for the opportunity. It was a great, great experience, and I appreciate being able to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now going to the other side of the U.S.
Well, it's kind of funny because I went to King Arthur too. I went in Washington, so it was between Washington and Vermont, and Washington had a lot more of things that I was looking forward to doing, and I've never been out west. So this 10X grant has honestly fulfilled something I don't know if I could have ever done on my own. So, but I did a taste of Washington, and I went over spring break. So it's been a while since I've gone. So the first night when we flew in, my husband and I did a date with cookies. So it was a couples that did the baking, And when we first showed up, in that first picture over in the corner, that's the King Arthur, and it's in this big warehouse in the middle of nowhere. And I thought, oh my goodness, what have I got myself into? Like, I was terrified. So I walked in, and it was awesome. There's about 6 or 7 other couples that baked together, and the cookies on the bottom were peanut butter sandwich cookies. And I actually did that in my summer Cub Quest class that I did. So this has really taught me a lot, and it's brought some recipes back to use with my students and doing it the summer Cub Quest. I had my last Cub Quest baking class tonight with my 3rd and 4th graders at Creekside. So I was covered in flour today. The second day we went out to Olympic National Park. So Olympic National Park, I didn't really know that much about it, but it makes me want to go to every national park I can possibly go to. So I said, can I get one of those little booklets, Nick, my husband? I was like, I need those booklets. We're going to try to get to every single national park we can get to. And it was funny because on the left is the ferry that we took. And in 3rd grade, we read about the Pacific Northwest. And that almost the exact same picture of that ferry was in the book. So, I mean, just how I can bring it back to my classroom, I've brought it back in so many different ways. And I showed the kids all of my pictures from it, and I took a video of us getting up onto the ferry so they actually could see what a ferry really was, because I honestly didn't know anything about it. But I also was kind of terrified at night because I just kept thinking of the Titanic. So I was like, I just have that fear of water at night, I've discovered. So I won't be on a boat at night ever. So with Olympic National Park, it's absolutely amazing. It looked like a fairy tale. We had to decide, because it's huge, and I didn't know how big it was actually, and they have the only rainforests in the lower 48 states. We did not make it to that because I wanted to see the Pacific Ocean. If I was going to be that close to the Pacific Ocean, I had to go out to the Pacific Ocean. So we made it out to the Pacific Ocean, which was, I would say, intimidating for me, just because we walked over the driftwood and it was like, whoa. So it was amazing. And then we went to Lake Crescent, which is crystal clear. I couldn't believe how clear the water was. My big thing was the French pastry class. So this was a 3-day class. We made eclairs, and we made lots of different things. But up in the corner, you work with a partner in the classes, and she is actually from Northern California, and she has traveled the world already since I've seen her in March. But it was just amazing, the connection. I love to meet new people. I love to learn about their life. And it was just amazing to have someone that had so many life experiences. And she taught me a lot. She actually owns her own cheese shop in Northern California. And I thought, I need to do that here in Franklin and own my own cheese shop. We made petit fours. Petit fours, our little French pastry that probably look a whole lot better on the shelf than what I made them. That was my final product. These did travel home with me, and we enjoyed them. My kids enjoyed them along with my fellow teachers at Creekside. The staff got to enjoy it. And then we also made Napoleon, and it was a long process. You make the Napoleon, and you can make petit fours with it. You can also palmiers. Those were my favorite. And then we made some macarons, and I actually brought some macarons for Dr. Hayden's going to pass out some macarons for you to try. The purple ones are a vanilla one. Go ahead. And the orange ones, they taste like Red Hots. I probably should have done them red, but they are cinnamon ones. And they fell, so that's why they're broken. But we got to take home all that we made as well. So those were the boxes that we got to bring home. However, unfortunately, the Napoleon and the eclairs, there's custards in those, so they couldn't travel. So we had to eat them all. We also went on a whale watching, and that by far was one of the most amazing. we saw the gray whales, and they have 12 that are in the PA Sound. There's only 12 that come back each year. We were too early for the orcas. The orcas we could have seen, but that was more of late April. So we saw the whales, and it was so interesting because never in a million years did I ever know that the whale blows, how terrible they smelled. It was awful. And it's like you get downwind of it and you're all like, oh, I never knew that before. And then we saw the people on the ship or on the boat, they were amazed because we saw like bald eagles. They were fighting over food. And they're like, this is spectacular. It was so awesome. So this by far was one of the most incredible things that I would have never been able to do without a 10X grant. And my husband and I were able to just do something like this. It wouldn't have been able to happen. And of course we did Seattle, and we went to Pike's Place. You have to get your obligatory, gum picture, which is really gross.
Yep.
And we went to the Space Needle, and I conquered a fear of heights by stepping on the glass. That was terrifying in itself. Wow. And then we saw the Chihuly Glass Museum as well. And an interesting fact is that my husband and I actually got married at the Children's Museum. So you can see all of our wedding photos with the Chihuly glass and just kind of going full circle being there. And then Seattle is known for the underground too. They built up because of all the flooding. And so on the underground, they have a lot of comedy clubs. And anytime you're in Seattle, if you ever see like the glass little circles, you're walking above. There's a sidewalk below you and there's buildings underneath you. And then, of course, the beautiful sights of mountains everywhere. You can see mountains wherever you are there. It was an absolutely amazing trip. The kids, I've been able to share recipes with students. I've been able to share it with Cub Quest. I bake with my students all the time. So just what I've learned from it. My next goal is to finagle a way to do a macarons class with adults for a Cub Quest. That's my next idea that I'm coming up with and how to do it. So, so you've seen the East Coast King Arthur, and now you've seen the West Coast King Arthur, and it is a wonderful company and lots of learning that happens there as well. But thank you so much. It was an opportunity of a lifetime.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, Indiana Bond Bank Fuel Budgeting Program.
Well, Ron, I hope you brought some food.
Yeah. Man.
It's so funny. They usually like, whoo.
I know, it always happens. Every time.
I always have to follow the top facts, don't I? We're going to have to look at the agenda next time. I'd like to introduce Ron Mangus. Ron is from the Indiana Bond Bank, and he's going to talk to us tonight about a fuel budgeting program that we might be able to benefit from.
Thank you. Again, I'm Ron Mangus. I'm the Director of Operations with the Indiana Bond Bank. I've been there for 23 years. Unfortunately, I don't have food to hand out, so it's not going to be as exciting a presentation as the food that was presented before. So I have three goals here, just a brief description of the Indiana Bond Bank, a kind of not an in-depth, but a description of the fuel budgeting program, and then an opportunity to answer any questions. So this is very informal. If you want to jump in and ask any questions anytime, please do so. First of all, the mission of the Indiana Bond Bank is to assist local government with the process of issuing debt. It's as simple as that. We're a small quasi-state agency created by the General Assembly in 1984. We have 7-member board. 6 of those members are appointed by the governor, and then the Treasurer of State is the chair of the Indiana Bond Bank. Okay. Very briefly, who we serve. We serve any taxing authority in the state of Indiana, including cities, towns, counties, public libraries, townships, county hospitals, and basically any entity as created by those entities. Again, very briefly, why I use the bond bank: economies of scale. We provide all-inclusive rates. We exempt the need to bid the financing, and we're a known commodity in the open market. So it gets us to our fuel budgeting program, which is kind of an offshoot of this. So the fuel budgeting program was created back in 2009 to help local government protect against rising fuel costs. And it's to protect their budget. So we can call it insurance, we can call it whatever we want, but it's to protect against rising fuel costs. It's not a program to save money, and we do not provide the fuel. You purchase the fuel just like you do, continuing to do that. So very briefly, a little historical, where did this program come from? We had some school corporations and entities that tried to do this on their own. And then basically someone came forward and said, hey, why don't you use the Indiana Bond Bank to do this? So that is where kind of the very quick description of how we got that. We had 3 or 4 entities come to us and bring us this program. So again, it's a budgeting tool, budget insurance. We allow smaller entities to pool together to combine. In the 18 program, we have 12 entities that combine their diesel and their gasoline consumption together. And we have the expertise of doing this program since 2009. So here's just a basic graph. And again, this is just an illustration of what fuel does. It goes up and it goes down and it kind of levels off and it goes up and down. It's very unpredictable. I mean, we've seen it. And this is against NYMEX, and that is where fuel trades, gasoline and diesel. And if you want to reference fuel, what you pay at the pump is about 50 cents higher. With taxes and distribution, you're paying 50 cents more than what's on this graph. But it's very difficult to budget. If the price of fuel jumps up, you're going to have to pull your money from some other source of revenue, and you do not want to do that. So for this program, we protect you. So this is basically how it works. We call it a costless collar just because that's what it's called in the market. Again, continue to purchase fuel from your current supplier. Entities can hedge, and I know I'm using the word hedge. We're trying to avoid that word, but we're going to use it anyway. 80% of your fuel consumption, and we set the level of protection at the end of each year, and I'll illustrate that later. And then there's an administrative fee. It's kind of an all-in cost amount that you had. We charged last year 5 cents per gallon. That's not been set, but I anticipate it to be approximately the same. Steps in the program basically is credit application. Entity determines level of protection, and then we'll set the protection. Last year we set it about 2 weeks after Thanksgiving in early December. We probably anticipate the same time, depending on we have all the paperwork from our participants all set. So in 2019, we set a diesel collar and a gasoline collar. The diesel collar, and again, this is about 50 cents less than what you see at the pump. The cap was $2.13 and the floor was $1.51 and a fraction of a cent. Likewise, $1.76 was the cap for gasoline and $1.28 was the floor. And I'll explain what that means here in a minute. So we'll scroll down here. If you see this graph, the red is the cap for each year. So it starts out at the end of 14. We don't go back all the way to 2009, it'd be too small. But if you notice in 2015, we have the blue line is the floor and the green is the price of fuel. Now, just warn that this could happen. The price of fuel went below the floor that we provided, and that means that your entity would pay the Indiana Bond Bank. But keep in mind, you're paying less at the pump. Conversely, and I'll show you this in the graph here, price goes above like it did at 2019. We had this spike here. We pay you, and that is your protection. So again, price of fuel goes up, we provide you protection based on the amount it goes above NYMEX or New York Mercantile Exchange, and it trades every day, and we settle every month. So I just want to go over that again. If the price goes above the cap or the red line, and we'll set this again in December for 2020, then we pay you. And conversely, if it goes below, you pay us. And if it stays within, and this is why it's called a costless collar, because the cost that we pay for the cap equals the cost that they pay us for the floor equals each other. There is no transaction if it stays within. So most of the time in diesel, it stays within. It may have gone a little bit below here in 17, if you can see that, but for the most part, it stays within. So I just wanted to any questions on that? Because that's the mechanism. We have a person in our office that does settlement every month and just provides an invoice. It's very simple. So that's basically the presentation on fuel. Just want to commonly asked questions. Where do I purchase fuel? You continue to bid out your fuel and purchase it where you do. We do not need your receipts. We're not anything. This transaction is separate. The advantages of the fuel program, we're very transparent. We're going to provide you a monthly settlement. We're going to show you what the cost of NYMEX, where it settles, is. And we're very flexible in the amount that you hedge. Applications are already set. A lot of entities fix their price with their vendor. If you do that, you're already doing what this transaction does. The difference between ours is we're transparent in our costs, where if you fix it with a vendor, they may not show you what all those costs are built in. Do have questions and fix your costs, let us know. We have a consultant that can help you to maybe figure out what is built into the cost when you fix in your cost, into fixed costs, excuse me. So that is the presentation on that. I have a couple other slides on Bond Bank, other programs, and just a couple facts and figures. Again, we're not a financial institution. We're not a bank. I know this legislature gave us the name bank, but we're not a bank. We get no direct dollars from the General Assembly. All the fees that we charge support the bond bank. We've assisted over 725 local governmental units and issued $22.1 billion since our inception. So, and then very quickly, we do cash flow financing, we do equipment leasing, and we replenish the common school fund. Those are kind of the educational type of things. So at this time, I will stop there. I went through this very quickly. Be glad to go back, but I just wanted to see if you had any questions.
I would just add to, Doug Dickinson has been in on conference calls about this program, and he went back and did an analysis. If we had been in this program in 2019, we would have saved about $9,000 so far, which is not huge, but we struggle in transportation. So every dollar that we can save would help.
Right.
And, you know, this program is designed for those large spikes and to protect us against those large spikes in gas prices. So
Could you take the last 5 years with the collar that he has and put our data in there and see where we're at?
we could. Mm-hmm.
And I can have someone in our office send us where we settled in the last 5 years. You're referring to diesel or gasoline or both?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can have that sent to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
and one thing I did, I went through and wrote down all the school corporations that participated last year and this year. MSD Warren Township is the biggest, one of the biggest Perry Township schools. So those are the ones in the area. I can read all of them. Lafayette Schools, Clay Community Schools out in Brazil, Franklin Township Schools, Hamilton Heights, Logansport, and Marion. And then we have an application from Jay School Corporation in Jay County. So MSD Wayne has participated, been in and out different years. I think it depends more on their budget. But those are the schools that have participated recently. Vigo County participated in 19. I'm not sure what their status is for 20. So those are the school corporations. We have a handful of cities too. So.
Do you also, forgive me, I know you said it's not a hedge, but do you work with the natural gas, propane?
We do not work with the natural gas, but if there's enough demand for propane, we can do this. For natural gas, there is a consortium, I guess, that does natural gas, that prepays. It doesn't work quite like this program.
Okay.
So the mechanics behind this is we take all the volume, put it together, and we have a firm that goes out and bids it for us. So we get the best. They're called Swap Financial. They're out of New York, and we're required to use one of those based on Dodd-Frank. So they go out and bid this for us. But counterparties that we have now are Bank of Montreal or BMO and Cargill. We're working on getting a third one. They had to hold off a year for a legal matter that they'll be in the program in the very near future. So,
Andy, we're already part of a natural gas consortium through a group called Maverick.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not sure the propane is the bus. You're thinking about the buses, right?
Right.
I'm not sure that there are enough buses around the state to generate a program, but
Okay.
in the future.
Thanks.
Yeah, we would be glad to create a propane. It's just that we don't have to have 42,000 gallons combined per month, but we can get better bids. But if there is interest in that, I know other school corporations are going to propane because the schools are, where the buses are easy to start.
Yeah.
It's just the direction we're going. But I think the price of fuel probably needs to go up a little bit to make that transition easier. But I do know schools are going that direction.
Anything else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me, and sorry I didn't have cookies.
Yeah, no kidding. All right.
Thank you, Ron. I'll be in touch.
Move on to
Thank
teacher
you.
appreciation grant distribution.
Okay, so we received our distribution for our teacher appreciation grants. The total was $185,000. We will first deduct the C9 and Earlywood portion of that, which equates to about $11,000. So the remaining $174,000 will be distributed equally. Well, not equally. I'll back away from that. We have 258 teachers that are eligible for that grant, and the highly effective teachers through the evaluation process will get 25% more distribution than the effective teachers. So if their evaluation was stronger and they rated higher, they will get 25% more. That is state policy. That's we are dictated how we distribute those dollars. So that'll be a nice, say, Christmas bonus that they'll get on December 5th payroll. So we are on track to distribute those funds. And if you recall, we're required to distribute those funds within 20 business days. And the December 5th payroll date will allow us to meet that requirement.
Great, thank you. All right, Mr. Sprout, registration update.
As you may recall, 3 years ago, we approved a online registration. And this is where parents can get online, update their information, and we can put that into PowerSchool for scheduling, transportation, and all that great stuff. As we renew applications, it's always a good time to look and see what's available out there. We will be moving from our current application to Excella School. It's basically giving us more opportunities. For example, when a parent goes online, they're no longer having to fill in the information, but getting feedback from the administrators and teachers. We look for that criteria, and now parents will be able to just verify the information instead of having to fill it in. What this will allow us to do is do more, and it costs less. So it's a win-win situation for us. We currently get about 50% of our parents that register, and we think because of the ease that this application will allow us to gather more people to register that way. So we look forward to the opportunity during the negotiation of the price. Our current software vendor, PowerSchool, bought Excella School, and they haven't really disclosed what they're going to do with it. The great news is they're going to honor the price we negotiated. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the next item of business, action items. AmeriGas FCS supply agreement.
Okay, a little bit more conversation about fuel today. So this is the agreement that will establish our service agreement with AmeriGas to provide us with a propane tank and the pricing structure to supply us with propane for the new buses that we've purchased.
All right, any questions or comments?
Move to approve.
It's been moved for approval. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Sewell. Resolution to create a referendum fund.
So we've had a little bit of discussion tonight about the referendum fund. This is just a formal resolution to create that particular fund. And you did a similar exercise this time last year to create the education and operations fund. So it's just a formality to be able to create those funds and allow us to spend from them in 2020.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
It's been moved for approval. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, next one, resolution for Indiana Bond Bank.
So these are documents that were forwarded to us from the Indiana Bond Bank, one being a resolution and another being an agreement. And what they have explained to me is this is part of the application process. So these two documents will allow us to go forward in the application process, but we won't actually lock into a decision until those floor and ceiling numbers come in at early to mid-December. And then there'll be a final document with that pricing outlined for the board to sign off on. So it seems like a lot of legal, and Mr. Young had the opportunity to review these documents and indicated that he didn't see any legal reasons that we wouldn't be able to move forward with these. Any questions I can answer?
So we'll be able to see that 5-year overlay
We will.
before we come in with even before they have the collar, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. If that's important in your decision making, I will make that happen.
Yeah.
All right.
Any other questions?
Move to approve. You got it.
Been moved for approval. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, next item on agenda is the discussion item, support staff pay raises.
I'll just stay up here for this one,
Yeah,
if that's
that's fine.
okay. So this is on the agenda as a discussion item. And I'm going to talk about our recommendation. If you're comfortable moving it to an action item, you can do that. If not, we can table it and discuss more and put it back on the agenda next month. But we went through the financial analysis of what this would look like. If you recall, we have designated pay raises for support staff for 10 to 12% for 2020, along with the teachers' raises of 2,500. And so the question here is, how do we distribute that? And for the teachers, we decided that they would get half of that in January of 1,250, and then the other half in August of 1,250. So for the support staff, we're recommending the same logic that we split it half and half, do 5% in January and 5% in July. This recommendation comes for a couple of reasons. It's consistent with what we've done for the teachers, and it also would help our cash flow because, we're starting these raises in January. We won't receive any of the dollars until June. So that would provide a little bit of cushion as far as the cash flow goes. So we're recommending the 5% for support staff in January and 5% in July. And as discussed before, there are a small number of classifications that are already in the mid-range of the peer groups. So, and most of these are positions that have been created in the recent past, some of our newer positions. So it won't be across the board type of raise for all, but the majority it will be. We will probably revisit this later in the year. We may need a phase 2 of support staff increases because even with the 10 to 12% in some of the classifications, that still doesn't get us to the midsection of our peer group.
Okay. So it's discussion, but you're comfortable if we moved it to an action item? You guys would be comfortable?
Yes.
All right.
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's move it on up.
All right. It's been moved for approval to move it to an action item. All those in favor signify by the sign of aye. Aye. So now it's an action item.
Move for approval.
All right. So we're going to move for approval for the for the support staff pay raises. All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Mr. Schwartz, I would just like to highlight the work that Ms. Gross has done on the last several iterations of both teacher salaries and support staff salaries. Been many hours trying to make sure that we get the cash flows, and she's done a remarkable job, especially considering when moving into a new education fund, operations fund, everything coming at her new. So congratulations. Thank you for doing
Thank you
this.
very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're planning to communicate this to the support staff after tonight.
All right.
That way they know it's coming, and they'll be thrilled to hear that.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank
Glad to
you.
hear it. All right. Thank you. We are.
I would like to move that we remove the Google Summit modification and conferencing with Mr. Sprout. We would like to table this item to a future time. What we were looking at was maybe going alone and having us sponsor the Google Summit. But I think after reviewing it, talking to some of his peers and focus group that are doing similar things, we want to get some more things lined up before we take that on, probably in 2021, right? And so Matt will be back in the spring to talk to us about that.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Sprout. Board and administrative comments. Dr. Clendenning.
Yeah, just wanted to talk briefly, and I'll have Mr. Perley and Mrs. Moran come up to the podium. And, we're reading Lost at School, and one of the things we're looking at is what does Dr. Green say is this phenomenon? Because, he obviously he's written this book, and I'm talking about behaviors that really is impacting a lot of us. So what is he telling us in terms of what are the kids missing? So as you guys read the book, are there any ahas that you see that come to you?
I think don't focus on the behavior as the problem. It's like what was the factor that caused that was like, whoa, yeah. I mean, I see it every day. It's like, wow, what are they, what's the skill that they're missing, or
The lagging skill instead of the behavior,
Yeah.
instead of addressing the behavior.
Yeah.
So part of the referendum dollars that we move forward with is coaching for both these two schools to partner with Dr. Green's organization to really drill down into that lagging skill and creating supporting structures. So both schools have had a chance to meet with their coach and get an action plan. So I thought it'd be appropriate for them to come to us and talk about that first engagement with Dr. Green's organization. So Mr. Perley and Mrs. Moran.
You're exactly right. It's not focusing on the behavior, it's focusing on the lagging skill. We have 3 sessions with our coach under our belt at CBIS. We have 10 people participating in really the professional development, where we are identifying those lagging skills, and then we're identifying questions to ask the student when we've identified lagging skills, so that we can have what's called a Plan B conversation. So it really talks about Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, and Plan A is what we do off the cuff as teachers or adults if we're parenting. And it maybe isn't always the best response. Plan B actually is a conversation with a student about the skills that they're lagging and what do they need to be successful. So that's kind of the next step in the process. So far in our coaching, we've only gone through the ALSUP one time. We worked on our wording. She critiqued us today, and we're going to go back and fix our wording. So we are learning as we go. Our consultant, she's a rock star. She's French Canadian. She is impressed that we can understand everything that she says, and I think she forgets that we work with elementary students every day. So we're pretty good at that. So that's kind of where we're at in the phase right now. We've also identified that this is not
a fit for every student in our building. When I look at the 801 students that attend Custer Baker, we would not go through this process with every student, but we would be able to identify the students that have lagging skills, and we would be able to work as a team approach with that student to help them develop the skills they need to be successful.
Well stated, Cheryl. All right. We are on a bi-weekly meeting, so we will meet with our coach, same coach, on Wednesday for our second meeting. So we have dove into the ALSUP with our teachers. Many of them, as I mentioned before, we had 13 people do the book study a couple of years ago, but there are only 2 people on our team. I think we've got a great relationship with Coach. As Cheryl said, she's working with both schools, so she's kind of able to share that experience with what's going on there, what we are doing, and then I think that feedback has been very, very good so far. As Mrs. Moran mentioned, that Plan B, there's actually 2 Plan Bs. There's Plan B that's proactive that you schedule out, and then there is Plan B emergency. And what I've noticed just in the last couple of weeks, because Plan B proactive takes a while to get to, but Plan B emergency is still better than Plan A or Plan C. So or at least Plan A for sure. I've seen a lot more Plan B, even emergency, just that quick conversation instead of coming at a student with a discipline or a consequence, but a conversation. Kind of like what Becky said. Okay, what just happened? What's up? And then they get back to that root of what's happening. So it's been a really good start for the program. Thank you. Very good. Great to hear.
Questions?
Well, I guess a question for the coach that schedule. So how many other accounts is she supporting? So do you have the opportunity, as you guys are building your plans, to do that, not waiting on the time that you're scheduled, but if something comes up and you want to do a sanity check with her, do you have that opportunity, or do you think she's too busy?
Yeah, she's been accessible via email for any questions I've had. And so we have like a homework assignment. Our team has like to complete an ALSUP on a student. And then she kind of grades it and gives us that feedback to kind of coach us through that. I see it parallel, very similar to our instructional coaching model in the school setting, except she's just on a lot bigger scale. Okay. And we're using Zoom to communicate with her, so it is a audio and visual aspect of that, which I think helps a lot too.
Good. Okay. Thanks.
Great to hear. Love to hear it. Thank you.
And I would highlight that Mrs. Sperling resides on which team?
Early.
Mr. Purley, and then Mrs. Scott resides on CBIS. So we're having some additional administrators. And then mental health committee meetings coming up on November 19th. And I know that Mr. Wirtz and then Mrs. Nelson are part of that. And Tina will still be chairing that with the agenda coming forward, but we'll have information about loss of school and the journey there as well.
All right, very good. Great.
Yeah, real quick conversation around November the 19th. This is the day that ISTA is highlighted as come to the State House and support teachers. And we definitely want to embrace that and say yes to that. So in partnership with FCTA, we've come up with a plan that we think will work, but we want to talk to the board about that. Our plan would be twofold. One would be encourage everybody to wear red that day in our school, both kids and teachers. We're also going to put out a communication from Mr. Wirtz and myself supporting the teachers, but also thanking the community for the referendum, because that did bring forward those additional dollars and some of the schools don't have available to them. We would like to send 10 of our teachers with FCTA leadership up to the State House to be a part of the rally and the conversations. FCTA sent out an all call to teachers and inquired who wanted to attend. Then they selected the 10. We're I would request that those are professional days, that they're not personal days or days off, that they're part of just being as teacher advocate. And so I would encourage us to do that for our teachers, and then we come back and share information. But the November 18th day is an important day just to show all of Indiana that teachers are what it's about. We want to have great teachers. They're talking about getting the floor up to 40,000. That's where we are, thanks to our community. And so those are the things that we want to say yes to. So I wanted to make sure the board was comfortable with professional days as well as any other items that we would have in there.
It's great.
The next day, November 20th, we remain in Madison for coffee with the superintendent. And then also that week, we're coming to the high school for the visit, a quarterly visit to talk about what's happening at the high school. This is not on the agenda, but since it's weather related, I want to talk about weather delays and e-learning. The plan is still in place that we've had in the past. So beginning around 4:30, I will be out on the roads with Mr. Sewell and Mr. Dickinson as we divide up the community to check the roads. By 5 o'clock, we'll hopefully make a decision. I will also then be reaching out to Mr. DeWitt with the swim team coming in. I want to make sure those kids are not on the road if we are canceling. So we communicate. I communicate with Mr. DeWitt. If we do have a delay, it's just a 2-hour delay, and the teachers need to get here as safely and as soon as they can. They don't have to come to school right at the normal start time. If we have a cancellation, as you recall, we've established 4 e-learning days, and then beyond that, I'd come back to the board and ask your thoughts, or we would add it to the end of the calendar year. E-learning day, the teachers do have the information about Google Classroom. Mrs. Worland has put forth several different items to them to help prepare them in case that would happen. And so we are prepared for an e-learning day if need be. But I'm hoping tomorrow it's okay. We're going to find out.
Right.
But I want to make sure the community and everybody understood that process that we're continue to use for delays. The rest are just highlights of the Christmas celebration. We have the choir concert and our gathering together for the admin, for treats as we go to the concert together. And then the band concert is the next week. And then Coogee kids are coming on that first week back to school. And I know that they're planning to go to CBIS, the middle school, and the high school at this time. And then we do have our board work session on finance on February 6th. And right now I'm looking at starting around 9 and finish at 3 if that's possible for the board. Tina has her team lined up to come present several different items, but it is a fiduciary day as we have a conversation and work session around that. We are going to meet at the new hotel. We're gonna be there. We've arranged for that. We're also having the food catered in to that event. So we'll be at the Richardson's new hotel right there on the left side. So that'll be a fun experience for us. So it's all the calendar items and highlights.
All right, thank you. At this point, I would open up the floor for public comments. All right, seeing no public comments, we will adjourn. Thank you.